So how did I get into audiobook narration and voice acting? Hi, my name is Jarman Day, and I'm an audiobook narrator and voice actor with over 100 books on Audible, both under my name and a pseudonym. I've also done a plethora of voice acting for different kinds of mediums and e-learning, corporate narration, some very light independent animation and video games, but not much. So in my last video, I talked about how my path to voice acting might not be very important to you if you're just starting out now in 2025, when I got started back in 2012. But there is something to learn from every journey that a voice actor has taken to success, even if they started back in 1950 to starting yesterday. You get to pick and choose what you think is important, what you think might be relevant to you, and absolutely throw away the rest. So for a quick rundown, here's how it started. I first started acting in plays back in high school, and I developed a real passion for it and applied to colleges to go to acting school, and I made it into none of them. So then I went to Boston University and became a film major, something performance adjacent. And while I was at Boston University, they had something called BU Stage Troupe, which is basically an acting troupe and theater company for all the non-theater majors. And I tried to be in every possible play they produced, and I directed a few myself as well. And while at Boston University, I also took some of the acting classes there, and then later on took a study abroad program over the summer with NYU that went to Stratford-upon-Avon in England and got to study with the Royal Shakespeare Company. It was an amazing experience. I got to work with the actors on Shakespeare text and performance. We did scene studies, we did Renaissance dance, we did stage combat, we got to see the productions there. I got spit on by Patrick Stewart in a production of Antony and Cleopatra in the Swan Theater, and it was amazing. So then from there, after graduating Boston University, I moved to Atlanta, where a lot of film and television opportunities were just starting out back in 2008. And in Atlanta at the time, if you didn't know, all of Turner Broadcasting was based there. So that's Cartoon Network, TBS, and the CNN headquarters. So I was new to the city and a little bit lost, but I decided to walk into Turner Broadcasting and get a job in film and television. So I put on my best suit at the time and walked straight up to the front desk, and I told them I brought my resume, I'd love to have an informational interview about working here at Turner Broadcasting. And the lovely lady at the front desk told me, this is not the front desk, this is the tour booth, which is how I became a CNN Center tour guide for the next 2 years. But at least I was performing a little bit, but that led to 5 great years at CNN, where I became a media coordinator at CNN in the newsroom, and then went on rotation as an associate producer for Anderson Cooper 360. But how does this relate to voiceover? Well, this is how I got my start. Whenever you watch the news for a period of time, you might see them play a video of someone from a foreign country, and when they're not speaking English, instead of putting captions on the screen, a lot of times they'll have an English voiceover translation happening at the same time that person's speaking. Oftentimes, these stories are going to air very quickly, and they want someone to record those voiceovers very quickly and get them on the air. And since I worked all kinds of weird shifts while I was working there at CNN as a media coordinator and associate producer, they'd walk into that newsroom and they'd say, who can record this voiceover right now? And since I was a performer at heart and I was dying to perform again, I raised my hand as much as possible. And that was my first experience of getting into a professional voiceover booth in the CNN headquarters in Atlanta. And it really did spark something inside me that I was missing performance, missing acting, missing interpreting scripts, all of that. And that's when I really started jumping into the research of voice acting back in 2012. And after I expressed this newfound passion with my coworkers and producers around the company, I did manage to get a couple other opportunities at CNN where I got to do some podcast intros. One back in the day, I think, was the Ali Velshi podcast on CNN radio. I got to do the intro for that. So after buying some equipment and doing some research in my little apartment in Atlanta and recording some auditions for some not so reputable sites online and having some success, I decided to pack it up and move back to my hometown of Orlando, Florida. And as a new voice actor, it is tough, especially when I was kind of going about it wrong and applying for these really low-end jobs on these websites like Upwork, and I think one was voicebunny.com at the time. I wasn't very discerning back then, and I wish I listened to more people's advice about being a little bit more discerning early on in your career. But one thing that was very different back then was ACX.com. As you may know, ACX.com is run by Amazon, and it's the audiobook creation exchange, where basically independent authors or publishers can post auditions if they like on this website to let narrators audition for those titles, and then the publishers or authors can then choose those narrators to narrate their books. And I was fortunate back in 2012, 2013, because this was pretty new still, and there weren't millions of aspiring narrators on there, and also more importantly, there weren't millions of scams on there. So there weren't 400 little cookbooks or 300 tiny self-help books that were obviously scams. Instead, every book I saw on there was pretty much a real author putting their work out there, really looking for a narrator. Now, I did take some advice from other narrators on forums at the time to make sure you stick to your guns, ask for a decent rate, and don't audition for books that you're not really that passionate about. If you're going to be narrating something incredibly boring, that's just going to be a complete drudgery to record. There's plenty of other jobs out there besides voice acting that will really kill your spirit that are much easier to get into and you'll actually get a decent wage for. So instead, only apply for things that you're passionate about, work on your acting skills, work on building up your equipment and your recording space until you get that job that you can at least be somewhat passionate about recording. So I recorded that first book on acx.com. It was a lot of fun, but a difficult learning experience for sure. And the very next book I actually booked was a paranormal romance novel. Pretty much every book I've done since then has been in the romance genre, and I'm loving it. But while that audiobook career was building up, I still did get other voice acting jobs in other mediums. I would audition for a ton of different kinds of mediums out there, corporate narration, e-learning, until eventually I got two very fun long-term gigs. One was Static Media, which was a short-form media company that did a lot of videos for YouTube especially. You might have heard of some of them: Looper, Grunge, Slash Film. I basically narrated short-form videos for them, mostly all related to the entertainment industry. Kind of like top 10 lists and that kind of thing, but man did I learn a lot in that job. A lot of true crime videos as well for Grunge. Check them out, they're very fun. And the second one being Homes.com. I narrated hundreds of neighborhood videos for Homes.com. That was a really fun gig. I learned about all these different cities and towns across the entire United States. If you're going around Homes.com playing some of those neighborhood videos, you will eventually hear my voice. But basically in the last 3 or 4 years, audiobooks has picked up so much for me that this is basically what I'm putting my main focus into right now. And I am very thankful and I'm very much enjoying it. So I really hope my journey was interesting, informative, hopefully helpful. And if it wasn't any of those things for you, I don't know why you're still watching this video after all this time, but I'm thankful that you're here. But be sure to follow for more videos about the audiobook industry, the voice acting industry in general, and more specifics about the nitty-gritty of acting and recording. But until then, love is love, and please be kind to each other.